That's right. All right, brother. This next one is a little bit strange, but there is obviously a verse that speaks of the Jews in the Old Testament, and here's what God is saying. God revealed through Moses that the children of Israel basically were, this is the person is saying, it appears that in Old Testament, God revealed through Moses that the children of Israel were a holy people to the Lord, chosen, special treasures, and so on and so forth.
Exodus 19, 5-6. Okay, what about
right? So this Muslim person is kind of like upset, and he says this is racism that the Jews are called this.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. If God or Yahweh is for all people,
really?
So what say you, bro?
Go to chapter 45, verse 16 of the Quran for me, can you?
45, yeah.
He just called Allah racist, and he called Muhammad racist.
Yeah.
Because notice what the Quran says, 45:16.
It appears to me this person doesn't know a whole lot about the Quran. It's obvious.
Yeah.
Okay, it says in verse 16, chapter 45, verse 16, in the Quran.
Sorry, hold on, I can't hear you. The volume, hold on. Go ahead, brother. I accidentally muted myself. Sorry.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so chapter 45, verse 16 in the Quran says, we gave the children of Israel the book and wisdom and prophecy, and we provided them with the good things, and we gave them advantage over all other people. Al-Alameen, that's the word, Al-Alameen.
Oh, wait, Allah did what?
Discriminated.
So you mean he just condemned his own Quran?
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened, bro.
Interesting. And he had a problem with the Bible saying that God chose Israel?
Yes, which obviously the Quran copied and pasted from the Bible.
Yep. So if we follow his logic, God chose Israel to be his special people on earth to work through to save the nations. That's racist. Well, in 45:16, the Quran agrees with the Bible. That's what Allah did. Now go to 247 of the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah of the Quran, chapter 2. Baqarah. Yeah, chapter 2 of the Quran, verse 47.
All right, verse 47 in chapter 2 of the Quran reads, O children of Israel, remember my favor which I bestowed upon you, and that I favored you over all nations. Al-Alameen.
So Allah's a racist, huh?
He is. I just realized this, man. I mean, it's just a pretty sad reality, you know?
Yeah, and the final I'll give you, for the sake of time, go to chapter 2 of the Quran. You just read 47, chapter 2, verse 122. Chapter 2, verse 122.
Chapter 2, verse 122 reads, this is the Quran again, chapter 2, verse 122. O children of Israel, remember my blessing which I bestowed upon you, and that I have favored you over all people. Al-Alameen. So I emphasize that.
Interesting. So if God is racist in the Bible for choosing a people to work through, because he's not just choosing Israel because he hates the nations. That's not why he's choosing them. He's choosing a people and shaping them in such a way, to live in such a way that they will be a light to the nations, to move the nations to want to worship their God. So that's why he created this people. To use this people on earth to reflect his glory and his beauty and majesty, to draw people to want to worship their God. Like, man, you guys are different and your God is different and special. We want to worship your God. That's the purpose. But if that's racist, he just destroyed the Quran. So why is he a Muslim?
Yep, exactly. And not to mention, Sam, of course, you and I know, Surah Al-Bayyinah, chapter 98, verses 6 and 7,
the worst
another
of all.
clear discrimination there between two classes of people. So I'm not really so sure what this person is talking about.
Yeah. Jews and Christians and the idolaters who reject Muhammad are the worst of creatures. You know what that means? People don't understand. When it says the Jews and the Christians, people of the book, and the idolaters, the unbelievers, who do not believe in Muhammad are the worst of creatures, that means, chronically, what Islam is saying, you're worse than a dog, you're worse than a pig, you're worse than a rat, you're worse than filth and scum, because you're the worst of all creatures. In fact, to make it even worse for him, In chapter 9, verse 28 of the Quran, it says, now the word idolater is a wrong term. It's actually those who associate. It says the associators are najis. Can you explain to our non-Arabic speaking brothers and sisters, what does the word najis mean when in 9:28 it says those who associate others with Allah, they are najis?
And najis, it's the worst thing you can say to someone, that you are unclean to the point that you should be away from us, cannot be touched, cannot be associated with us. It's almost like you stink. You know, you're saying something like that you are diseased with something that could be contagious. We want nothing to do with you. We have to clean up after meeting with you. I mean, that's what it means. Garbage, trash. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And this is referring to 9:28, chapter 9, verse 20 of the Quran, where Allah, supposedly Allah, is telling Muhammad to tell the Muslims, from this time on, do not allow those who associate access to Medina or Mecca. It's actually, it says, you know, it's Masjid al-Haram. They are not allowed to live in Mecca anymore. No more. And by virtue, Medina, which is why the Islamic tradition says Jews and Christians and the idolaters were all expelled, thrown out of the Hijaz, the Arabian Peninsula. No more Jews and Christians or idolaters. They could no longer live in Mecca and Medina. They were thrown out, at least by the time of Omar. A group of Jews were only allowed to stay in Medina because they agreed to give half of their produce to the Muslims. But then Muhammad made a covenant saying, this will only be as long as we want you here. But if we decide to throw you out, you got no choice. And Omar expelled them. So this means that this verse, as applied by Muhammad and his companions, Umar ibn al-Khattab, is including Jews and Christians as those who associate. Because in chapter 9 of the Quran, pay attention, non-Muslims, in chapter 9, verse 30, we are told that even the Jews worship Ezra as a son of Allah, and the Christians, Nasara, worship the Messiah as a son of Allah. And in worshiping these prophets as God's sons, they are now associating others with Allah, so they follow under the category of those who associate, who are najis, unclean and dirty, and need to be thrown out. So there you go.